Good morning, my name is Tina Parks and I'm from the British Academy of Floral Art, and I'm here to show you another design with daffodils this morning. So we had a look at our first design and we've used these beautiful daffodils in the design this morning. So I just thought it's such a pretty flower and such a iconic flower for spring. And one that really does put a smile on your face. I really love these. I love watching them open up. I mean, even from yesterday morning to yesterday afternoon to this morning, this bunch has really opened up. These were all tight yesterday, and now they're already popping. So they all came in looking like this, tight daffodils, and now they're already at this stage. So it's lovely. I really like creating designs of these because you can put them in a design at this stage, and then every morning you come down and they're totally changed. So really nice one to watch. So let's create something nice with these. So the daffodil, we've discussed a little bit about the care of in the first one. So this one I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the characteristic of the daffodil and think about some of the other information around the daffodil. So daffodil, the symbolic feeling of a daffodil or the symbolism of daffodil is one of the key things is that it's used for the Welsh national flower. So I always think of Wales when I see a daffodil. And also, of course, it's used for some of the cancer charities as well. They have a daffodil as their symbol. Commercially, it's produced mostly for floriculture, so for cut flowers that we use them, also for bulbs as well, so you can plant them in your own garden. But there are a couple of other commercial productions that they use them for. One is they are grown for perfume. They do have a nice scent to them, especially some of the older species you get, and you think, wow, they really smell gorgeous. And they're also, interestingly, the sap that's inside has an alkaloid in it, and that is used in medicine to treat Alzheimer's. So in Wales, they grow these as a commercial crop for actually just taking the sap from them. So it's amazing. This little humble daffodil is quite useful. Availability is quite a long season actually, and getting longer. They're exploring and experimenting the length of the season, but generally, sort of commercially for us, November, May to May sometimes, depending on the season. The key commercial availability for its natural season is more January to March. And again, dependent on season. So if the season is particularly wet or dry or particularly cold, it will influence the lasting ability of when the flowers come out. So if we have a cooler, not quite so bright one, the season will probably last a bit longer. If it's bright and warm early, then obviously the daffodils will come out early too. So I think that's sort of quite nice, although I have heard that there have been experiments to get daffodils in the summer, although I don't know how I feel about that because I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I like them in the seasons. I like things to pop up in the different seasons. Flower food is a question that's often asked about daffodils. Should we put flower food in? Now there is a specialist flower food that you can use for daffodils, but a lot of companies and sort of advice is probably not to put flower food in daffodils. Make sure your vase is really clean, your tools are clean when you're cutting them, and very shallow amount of water like we talked about yesterday. So just a very small amount of water in the bottom, and that seems to help them last pretty well then. Somewhere cool if you can. The cooler you have and not direct sunlight, the longer they'll last. So if you have a cool dining room, for example, that hasn't got direct sunlight in it, those could last a couple of days, 3 days longer than a daffodil that's perhaps in a warmer sitting room that's in a brighter, lighter position. So what I've done in this vase, so I've got a nice vase here, I've got a cylinder vase, a nice glass vase, and all I've done at the moment is wedged some of these lovely white sticks in. So I'll just tip it up like that. So you can see I've crossed some over, which is sort of a Japanese technique for wedging into a container and helps hold everything else in place. So what I've done is I've forced some of these across in the container. So I've cut them that way and wedged them down, crisscrossed them up, and then I've added some of the uprights in there. I've just got a few more to add as well. And what I'm doing with this is I'm making this one a little bit more designery. So I'm actually going to cut the tops so that they're all similar height. I'm going to save these little bits because we could use them for something else. Florist never really throws anything away. We always find a space for it somewhere. So always have something to do with him. So I just put a few more of these in. So I'm just adding a few more of these nice stems in. I don't want to fill it up too much, but I want to create a nice sort of structure in here that I can use for, whoops, pushing that down again, for holding the flowers up. So I'm literally creating this as a support structure for the daffodils so that they stay up right when I put them in to here. So maybe just a few more, a couple more pieces. So this is a sprayed product that we can buy from the wholesaler. I had it for Christmas. I had it in my garland up my stairs, and it's a really nice product. So it's a really useful one to use, and of course I've just dried it. So I've taken it out of my garland, dried it, popped it away, and then I thought for this to be perfect, so it's come back out again. So it's a really useful product. So you can use these things over and over again. So that's quite nice. Little small pieces in. So what I'm looking to do is just sort of evenly fill this. So I'm looking to sort of have roughly even placement of the stems all the way around. And I'm just wedging things in, and you can just trim them down if it's too tall. I'm just trimming them down, and the reason I'm doing that is just to make it a little bit more modern looking and a little bit more stylized rather than very loose and wild, which is what we did on the first one. So classically we need to add our daffodils now, so we need to think about where we're going to add them. Now you could add them all on the top, so you could have this top line. Obviously we're limited to the height of the daffodils, so that plays a bit of a role. When we're looking at a vase height, we're often thinking about wanting to either go 2/3 or 1/3 in the vase rather than the halfway. So not putting flowers in at the halfway mark because that cuts the vase in half, but actually coming 2/3 up or 1/3 down. Now if we put them 1/3 down, they would be a little lost and they would be a bit squashed in there. So we've got to come up at this 1/3 up at the top here. But we could slightly stretch it up and just do a little bit of a funky thing and just lift them almost to the top of the white sticks. So I'm just going to try that and just see how that looks for us. So I'm just using the table, I'm measuring the height of the vase, knowing that you've got a little bit of height at the base of your glass vase, so just coming a little bit shorter. And then let's just try threading them through. So just wiggle them through so they're sitting in there. So I want the lovely sticks to help hold the flowers up in place, and what I can do to save a little bit of time is cut a couple at the same time. Once I've got a height I'd like, I'm going to get all three of those pretty much at the same height to get something fairly even. Now sometimes you don't want to do that because you want to make it slightly more organic and you want them to be slightly different heights, but on this one, because we're going with this slightly modern feel, that crisp cut look is quite nice, so that's why I'm going to go with this placement. And then I need another one because I've got 4 in there. Now 4 is going to square it off, so I need 5 really. Let's put one in the middle. And then if we wanted to slightly modernise it a little bit, what we could do is slightly group them. So let's bring that one slightly, not quite in the middle, but just a little bit more to one side, if I can find a little space. If you twist the stem a little, twist with your fingers and thumbs, what it will do is it will help drop it down. And then what we can do is we can put another one in on the other side to give that one a little friend, like that. So slightly grouped now, and one more perhaps on this side. So we're not quite so even now. Just drop that down there. Give them a little twist as you wiggle him round. Maybe let's go 2 buds there. Nice. Let's probably hopefully going to be enough, because by the time this opens, it's going to be a lot fuller. At the moment we're looking at it and it's very tight shut, so there we go. I think that's enough. So what we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 flowers in there, so just under a bunch of daffodils. And because we've used them all at the same height, it gives quite a strong impact to the design. So we've got this lovely linear straight white stems with the linear white green stems as well repeating, and then we've got this nice sort of flat top of colour which is quite strong, quite dominant. I've got a little bit of a weaker side on here. I've got no uprights here on this side, so I don't know if I can turn it slightly, but there's nothing on this side here. So what I can just do now is just put a couple more pieces of the sticks in just to counterbalance that, so that I make sure that I've got the uprights all the way around evenly, and I can always add any more little bits in if I need to. So I can cut, again I'm measuring and cutting, so let's have a look. I could do with a slightly heavier one on this side as well, just to give it a little bit even. I'm looking for even density of these sticks now. It doesn't have to be exactly, but I want it to look a little bit so that there's sort of fairly even coverage in there. So one more on that side, that's much better. That's better. It feels like it's much more even. And if anything's a bit tall, we can take a stem off and just give them a trim, cut them down. And that tends to stylize the whole design, so it keeps it nice and sort of simple. So it needs a little bit of water in here, about, perhaps in this one, I'm probably only going to go, everything's touching the bottom, so I know that everything's going to drink. I'm probably going to go about 2 centimetres of water in the base here. So a much more modern, crisp looking design, just because we've cut the top off and we've kept all the flower at the same height rather than having lots of more natural height. So I hope you like it.